Hey everybody, welcome to the Ask Us Anything for the Self-Publishing Podcast on May 28th, 2015. How's that for a professional way to introduce us? Thanks to those of you who are joining us, and I know that a bunch of people have already left YouTube questions and probably a lot of firsts and that sort of thing. Here's a note that was not planned for in advance, but hey Amy, you're probably watching. Here's something to add to the workflow. Make sure the guys schedule and Ask Us Anything once a month, because we've been out of the habit. We need to get back into that. Dave's happy about that, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, we definitely need to do more of these because we get so many questions in email, and this is a great way to. I like the email, but the problem with email is that it gets really, really time consuming, but also you're only helping one person at a time, and it's that kind of thing where if you're getting one question, there are many people with that same question or some version of that question, and we've tried a few different ways to kind of mass broadcast answers. We did that thing with
That works well.
Captain. Yeah, that thing broke down. Like we were all of a sudden we couldn't access the questions that people were asking because of some plugin issue with the with the company, and it just stopped working. So this works really well, and it's a great community builder, and it's fun. Like despite Dave clearly not wanting to be
And I
here,
get to have a White Russian. So.
and you get to have White Russian. Normally I would have a margarita right now, but I'm on no sugar again starting today. So just because
Sean on no sugar, much
yeah,
like Dave on Prozac.
I've been eating terribly, and it does affect me. But I'm sure we'll get some workflow questions because we always do, and I'll talk about that later then, rather than blah blah now. So
So
John, do you
before we
have announcements?
begin,
And then
I do have announcements. Look at how we're professional on top of
we're
professional.
trying. We're
Amy
really trying.
reminded me of the things that I had remembered on my own professionally, and then Sean reminded me to recite the things. So here they are, two quick things. One is if you're one of the people who requested an app for our mastermind, the Stone Table, and you want to actually apply, do that before May 31st, because that is last call. If you haven't and you were interested in applying for it, help at sterlingandstone.net. Amy will get you an application. But again, the 31st, midnight at the end of the 31st is when we'll stop taking applications. We finalized a lot of it, and this is the last you'll hear about it for a while until we open some new slots. So that's that. The second is, now I only know this is the prompt, is the Master Beats forum, but Sean knows more about this, I think. Is that on Sterling and Stone, and I think, is Seth going to be in there? Can you describe what that is?
Yeah, actually, Seth started it. He sent us an email, Amy.
Seth is our app developer, guys, for the
Yes.
Master Beats app.
So Seth Atwood, if you heard his episode on SPP a few weeks ago, he's our brilliant developer, and he is going to. We're building something called Master Beats, which is an app that will be. The tagline is create better stories faster, and it will do everything from helping you with blueprints to world building and timelines and casting and locations and all that cool stuff we talk about as far as beats. We're building an app to make that happen, and he's kind of gathering your ideas and your opinions, and he wants to just kind of collate that stuff. So it's at sterlingandstone.net. You do need a free account. It's just your email address, and that'll let you access the forums, and the forum, once you're in there, is public, and you can see what other people's ideas are and offer your own. And
because this app is best sort of crowdsourced from not in terms of building it, but opinions. Like it's not, we're not the only writers who are going to use it, and we want to know what you guys would want in an app like that.
Yeah, essentially we're building this because it's based on our ideas and our workflow just to begin with. But already Seth's added some crazy cool ideas that, we never would have come up with on our own. And, the community, I'm sure, will continue to, add fuel to that fire. It will change over time. We're basically trying to get the, minimal, viable product that we could take to market. But we need to know what that is too. So anyway, you can visit that forum.
So what's the best way to do this? I really liked that one time that we had voted up questions, but I don't think we can do that anymore. So Dave, are you just going to read them off of YouTube, or how do we want to do this? Or should we all be watching YouTube to pull them?
I can do it.
I'll pull it up too, but if you want to get the ball rolling.
How about Johnny? You have that email question. I have the Google Docs up, and Dave can handle YouTube.
Yeah, if you all see a question that you want answered, hit that thumbs up because that'll help with top comments. It'll bring it up higher. But I
Okay, well
will
that's
look and
yeah, yeah. There you go. That's a good idea. That's kind of like the voting up and voting down we're doing on Sterling and Stone, or on Google Plus that one time. I've just equated us to Google. All right, so where do we want to begin?
You have any, Dave?
I'm looking right now. I'll just read. Okay. James Donnelly says, "Hi guys, long time listener. You three have been commuting with me for the last 2 years. Nice to see you put on a show us day job stiffs can catch live. I have two questions. One, I know you always say the most important step to start a self-publishing career is to write, write, write. No, actually, it's write, publish, repeat.
Iterate, optimize.
However, however, I've also heard you say at times if you knew what you knew now, you would have spent more time in the beginning building a marketing foundation, website, Aweber, etc. Based on your experience today, what would you advise a new writer just starting out to do? Get your foundation ducks in a row first, then focus on writing, or write as much as you can out of the gate and then worry about foundation later? And number two, along those same lines, which do you think is better in the beginning? Publish as you go along with a little or no marketing funnel to start, or taking the long game approach, writing at least 2 or more books before publishing so you have the beginnings of a funnel and CTA targets right out of the gate?
So just before we begin answering that question, I'd just like to say that I personally only have an hour. Sean and Dave may choose to go longer, although I think Dave is probably going to leave Sean to fend for his fucking self.
Sean's going to be the fat guy in the zombie movie.
So I was just listening to the length of that question and imagining how long we could go on. So maybe we can try and keep our answers trim on these.
No. This is a new and improved SPP crew. We're going to try to be efficient here. So I'll start since I ramble the most, and we'll see how quickly I can do this. Watch, check it out. I would actually, without any question, I would work on my craft first. I think that's really important. I think one of the reasons that I can do as much as I do now is because I spent time, a few years, as a ghostwriter, and I learned to write well and fast during that time. I think learning your craft is much more important than building a platform for no one to visit. And as far as getting a funnel in place, I think that's really, really important. Johnny and I had a meeting today where we were talking about that exact same thing. You really need to build things out, and Invasion is the first property that the company, not just Realm and Sands, but the company pre-optimized. We decided this is something that is going to sell, and it's a funnel, and we're going to start it the right way. And we were talking about how to do that with some of our other lines. So I absolutely think that you should write. You should practice because your first book's probably going to suck. Or at least it's not going to be as good as your second book. That's just the way this works. So work on your craft and work on your funnels.
You want to have a hack, Dave?
No, that's good. We're going to keep it trim. I don't have anything to add to that, so yeah.
Well, I would just say I will add a little bit to that, and that is just remember that everything you hear on Self-Publishing Podcast is not necessarily advice. You are listening to our journey and not necessarily your journey. So just as an example of one thing that here's something that Realm and Sands specifically did. The whole company did it a little bit, but Realm and Sands really did it. Since we write in multiple genres, we opened a lot of boxes that really didn't have any relationship to each other at all. So CI, if they were opening boxes, at least they were like Yesterday's Gone Season 1, White Space Season 1, they're still both in the same basic genre. They're still horror, dark fantasy sorts of things, or sci-fi. But Unicorn Western and The Beam, there's no carryover at all. So what we decided to do was to go wide and then only then to sort of, we said, strike the match. And that's really not the right way to do it. If for most writers. Now we chose to do that because we're making a long game, and only now with Invasion we're finding those back catalog, like The Beam is starting to sell better because Invasion is selling. So I think it's important to know where you want to end up, and probably for most writers it's best to write, publish, and repeat, and to get those funnels going, but not necessarily. You may want to watch how long term you think, I guess is what I'm saying, which sounds like contrary to normal advice. So
no, I think the difference is you just have to know your outcomes, and this is true with anything that you do. You have to know why you're doing something that you're doing it. And for us, we've never ever been focused on revenue. We've always been focused on business building and doing really cool things and big things. And so if you're putting revenue first, then funnels and series and things like that are much more important. Making sure your products are linked is paramount. So it's not even about thinking long term. It's about really identifying your outcome, because I think that can get muddy.
Ryan Wiley has a question for Johnny. What are your 3 tips for someone who typically writes 1,000 words a day but desires to produce 5,000 plus words a day?
Well, okay,
Cocaine?
so cocaine. 2-part answer. One is that you may not be built to write 5,000 words a day. I think that for a while there we were backing away from discussing word counts because it seemed prescriptive. And every time I would mention a high word count, then we got people who said that was encouraging, and we got people who said it was discouraging because they could never match it. Not everybody writes like me. Not everybody writes like Sean or Dave. Dave being in a hood in the basement with 1 candle burning. Well, sacrificial altar is in use. So just consider for a fact that maybe 1K a day is kind of your process. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's just how it is. Now, that said, in order to write faster, if that is indeed within your capacity and you want to do it, is just practice, honestly. I think that the more you write, the easier it gets to write. I find that I hit flow states and I go. So I'm writing the Beam Season 3 right now, and there are chapters that are really hard because I have to puzzle something out, and those are slow. And then there are chapters that, especially if you've read the Beam, there are chapters where they're like in Beam space and stuff. They're a little, I don't know, they're metaphysical chapters. Those write like this. They're nothing. And action scenes, I know Dave busts on Sean all the time for action scenes, but for me, I wrote a really heavy action scene today that Sean actually doesn't even know is coming. And that wrote
Awesome.
very, very fast because I can just see it happening. So there may be strengths you can play to, but it basically comes down to practice. And I know that's an unglamorous answer, but you just have to keep trying at it.
Yeah, I'll go ahead, Dave.
I'll add to that, not to let your initial self-editor, hate what you're writing first go around. I would say just write and get out of your way, and then come back and edit the hell out of that.
Yeah, I think that's non-negotiable. I think that if you self-edit as you go, you're really impeding not just how fast you can write, but how good your ideas are. I think that if you let yourself go, uncensored, your ideas tend to blossom better. I would also add that it's incremental growth that makes a really big difference. If you wanted to do 100 push-ups and you're not used to doing 100 push-ups, there's no way you're going to sit down and do 100 push-ups. But if you do 20 push-ups and do that for a couple weeks, and then 22, and then 24, and then 30, you'll eventually hit 100. And it's just a muscle. Writing is that way. I'm writing 1,000 words a day right now, and if I wanted to hit 2,000 without it hurting and just being like no big deal, it would just be, I'd make sure that, I've hit 1,000 a day for a long stretch now, maybe 4 months straight. I'd hit 1,100 for a couple weeks, then 1,200, and I think that if you're writing 1,000 and you want to hit 5,000, it's unreasonable to require that of yourself, to say, okay, well, I wrote 1,000 on Thursday, it's Friday, I'm going to write 5,000, because you're just setting yourself up for failure, and then that's going to be a kind of a vicious cycle. So if you want to hit 5,000, make sure that your goal tomorrow is something like 1,100, 1,200, something that you can actually do.
Mel Primrose says, "Hey, hi guys, longtime listener. How do you know if a story is worth writing?"
My answer, and I think Sean's is probably the same, and I bet Dave's is different, is I'll write just about any story. Like I can make any story make sense. I enjoy the challenge.
My answer
I don't
is
think that's
different. Yeah, I think that you have to write a story that you care about.
That too.
I can care about anything is the thing.
I can't.
But yeah,
You can care about nothing.
I have to find a reason to care about it, because when writing is hard, it's because I don't want to write something. And when I don't want to write something, it's because I don't have an emotional connection to it. So, for example, one of the things that Dave's wanted to write, even beyond our Z series, is a zombie story. And, I have to find the emotional hook there. I have to find a reason to really care. because otherwise it's just meh. And I think that for me, enthusiasm is like 90% of the writing process. If I'm excited about something, it's not work. And the words come out better, they come out faster, I'm excited. And so I think that that's how you know a story is worth writing. If you're thinking about it before you go to sleep, if you're thinking about it in the morning, that's a story worth writing about. If you're thinking, this is a cool idea, I bet it'll make a lot of money, but you don't really feel the hook there, the passion, your reader's not going to feel it either. So that's an idea not worth writing about.
I have two Thomas Bennett questions I'd like to answer if I could, because one is pretty easy and the other is not too okay. So basically, the first you'll see here. So Thomas says you commented on a couple podcasts ago that you segment your mailing list so you know which of your readers are buying from which stores. How do you do that? Is that a function of Aweber? Thomas, I know you tend to listen live, so listen tomorrow. It'll be show 162. I think it will air on the feed on June 17th, I think. But for those of you who listen live, it'll be on Friday, May 29th at our normal time, which is 3 p.m. Eastern.
And it'll be
we're
on
going to talk about that. On YouTube, right? It'll be on YouTube, obviously, right away. The second of Thomas's questions is, what percent of your sales come from non-Amazon vendors? Now, before I answer this, I will just say you did say what percentage of your sales come from non-Amazon vendors. So we're obviously only answering for us. A lot of writers, it's 100% Amazon or huge chunk. I would say right now, at least for the dashboards that I am privy to, we're slightly more than 50% Amazon right now. That's Sean and I. Those are the dashboards I see, and that is growing. I can see a time when Amazon might not even be our number one vendor, and it wasn't always that way, by the way. That's recent.
That's very recent. Yeah.
Yeah, that's seeds that we planted a long time ago, finally beginning to mature and getting reps and stuff like that.
Yeah, and that's, I think, really forward thinking for us. I'm really glad that we did that this year. So yeah, I have nothing to add there.
Did I throw off the rhythm by answering one out of turn?
No. Hold on.
I like how Dave just answered my question rather than making fun of me. He's off his game. He's tired tonight.
I know. I don't know that I've seen Dave, because ever since he moved to his day schedule, I think this is the most tired we've seen him.
He's been giddy, Dave.
Yeah, I've been up all day and I had to go to a school function today.
I kind of want to
tune into Better Off Undead tomorrow.
Right.
Yeah, I am ready to go on that.
Awesome.
Jan Schlosser says, hey guys, I'm familiar with your story outlining method from your using Scriveners for Beats course. My question is how your process differs when you're outlining series and serials as opposed to standalones. In particular, do you outline a whole season or even a whole series in advance, or do you write your beats episode by episode? Do you even write beats for individual episodes or just the season as a whole?
It really depends on the project. Robot Proletariat Season 2 and Season 1 both got full treatments for the entire... Well, actually, that's not true, is it? Was Season 2 episode by episode, Johnny?
It was certainly adjusting mid-episode. So the problem with me is when Sean writes with me, and I know that Sean and Dave's process is different, but when Sean writes with me, I go in places that he doesn't expect. So the episode 3 of season 3 of The Beam, he's going to see for the first time probably tomorrow afternoon. And in the middle, there's chapters that don't exist. Like they're just like totally out of the blue, directions that weren't anticipated. And when that happens, he has to adjust. And I think that that's what you're talking about with Robot Proletariat Season 2 is I think you gave me a map and I went off and we had to readjust.
Yeah, it was a skeleton. That's right, because I knew that. So we got through episode 3 and then 4, 5, and 6 were pretty skeletal, and then they ended up being tossed out anyway. With Dave and I, we always do episode to episode. This one we're working on Yesterday's Gone Season 6 right now, and that one has a little more heavy lifting for us because we're wrapping up the series. And while that's really important, you know, it's going to be Sterling and Stone's first deep, complete filled funnel, which is really exciting. But it also, you know, on a storytelling perspective, there's a lot to do. We really want to leave fans satisfied, and so it was important to kind of know where we were ending before we started. But still, it's story meeting to story meeting, episode to episode. Beam season 3, which is being done right now at Realm and Sands, like Johnny said, is that's episode to episode, which is how we wrote season 2 also. And it's
season 1 he mapped out entirely for me, but it was when it was our second project together, and because of that, it changed a lot. And I think that the adaptation of going to episode with me is just a time saver, because why write beats that are just going to be changed anyway?
Yeah, I think that possibly our storytelling will, because I think an ideal is having a good idea of what the season is going to do ahead of time. And I had that a little bit more with season 3 for the Beam. It was pretty mapped out, and episode 1 had beats that were 5,000 words long, which is long for beats for an episode. But the season was kind of played out, and now I'm pulling out pieces of the long beats that I made at the beginning to kind of fill out episode to episode. I think that once Johnny's in Austin, I think that we'll map out a little bit differently, because we can actually be in person and have, whiteboards and stuff like that, and that would change. But as far as mapping stuff out, novels are easier in that way, to kind of, the beginning, middle, and end all before word 1 is written. So yeah.
Edward Sullivan asks, is it okay to split your time and do multiple projects? If so, what is the limit you are willing to split your time? Also, are any of you planning on anything solo ever again soon, other than maybe the nom de plume comedy or children's stuff?
Edward, I know that you guys all know this, but I'm so sensitive to this. When you put the question in terms of is it okay to split your time, the answer is it is okay to do whatever you want. I think that sometimes people think that what we're saying is this is the way to do it. It's very much not the case. So that said, I have gone back and forth with this, and when these guys first met me, I was splitting my time between up to 3 projects at once. And what I found was most efficient for me was to just laser focus on one project. Now that said, I do have writing time, which is new creation time in the morning, and then the afternoon can be used for all sorts of slightly less creatively intensive stuff. Revision can fit into there, like if I have to go over a project again, but a lot of times that's mechanical stuff, like I just created a bunch of box sets. Writing emails and autoresponders is afternoon time, and to me that feels like, I don't know if that counts as a project, but I would split them up that way. Now as far as solo projects, I kind of don't have any desire to, actually. I mean, I'm sure I will. I'm sure I'll write something by myself at some point again, but it's just much more fun to write collaboratively, because I can tell my wife about what's going on, and she isn't following along. She isn't in part of the creative process, and so lose a lot of that enthusiasm, which for me is infectious. So the answer is yes, I could, but no, I have no desire to anytime real soon.
Yeah, so as far as working on multiple things at once, I don't know. I kind of get off on that, actually. But but I don't think that's normal, and I don't think it's necessarily healthy. And I think if most writers try to do that, it's dangerous. And in our meeting today, we had several things that we need to accomplish, and we determined that, what, the best way to get this done is to not try to do all these things a little bit, but to focus on one thing, knock it out, get the next thing off the shelf. And I think that generally, that is the best way. And even now, I'm more streamlined than I've ever been. I am working on fewer things, but because there's different imprints and I'm working with all the imprints, there are different projects that I'm working at any given time. And I've designed a pretty intelligent schedule that allows me to, kind of juggle all of that. But I also do this full time. Like, this is my job. This is my life. If I was doing this part time, there's no way I would try to work on, more than one thing at a time. I was still copywriting when Collective Inkwell was getting off the ground, and it was just Yesterday's Gone and then all my other work. So I think you have to do what's best for you, for sure. What was the other part of that question?
Will we work on stuff alone?
Oh, yeah, I'll echo Johnny there. Yeah, someday, sure, but I have no desire to right now because like I wrote Penny to a Million too under Guy's name recently, and that was fun. But not as much fun as my other stuff. Like I love writing with Dave. I love writing with Johnny. I've been writing some Guy stuff with Garrett lately. That's fun. I like writing. I like the collaborative process a lot. I'm lucky that I work with the amazing people that I do. So I wouldn't want to do it alone.
Yeah, the only thing I'd want to do alone is,
Cry.
yeah, cry and possibly sex. No, no. I have no desire to write any fiction alone that I can think of at the moment. I probably write some sort of like humorous book alone. Uh,
Oh, How to
because
Win Your Marriage. Dave should
yeah,
write.
yeah, yeah. I've seen Redacted, and I don't trust Sean or Johnny to help me there. So, uh, and yeah, I will probably do a children's book on my own. I have an illustrated one I'm doing on my own. So yeah, that's it for me. And I like to do one project at a time. The thing with me though is I like to always, like, whatever I'm working on, like, I want to work on something other than that. Like, I have like the best ideas for other shit. Like when I'm writing Yesterday's Gone season 6, I'm like thinking of like White Space or something else, and
It's
uh,
totally true.
yeah.
No, I should introduce you to a book called The War of Art. I may have something to say on that.
Yeah, I've read that. All right. You guys don't have any questions?
Yeah, Johnny, the one that came in email.
Oh yeah, I figured we were just hacking through YouTube questions because those are the live viewers. Why don't you give me one more and
Okay.
I'll find
All
that.
right. Hold on, let me. Uh, Kathy Pelham asks, when you have multiple projects, how much do you intermix the researching, beating, writing, editing? Can you beat one story while writing another, or is there a point where you have to draw the line and focus on a single book? Would your answer be different if you're working without a collaborator?
Um,
I think
I'll,
Sean's the only one here that like works on several projects at once, just because of the nature of our dynamics here.
yeah, so I'll take that, and I would say that this would be true whether I was working solo or with a collaborator. Um, my beating time is not the same as my
Whoops, wrong sound effect.
writing. It's not the same as my writing time. So one really has no effect on the other. I make time for beats every day. And really, that's just planning. So sometimes, like recently, my beats time was for a smarter artist autoresponder. And that's not exactly making up a story, but kind of it is. It's narrative. Or I'll do story beats for a new idea, or there's stuff in the bank that has been beated out that is just sitting there, which is fine because not everything that gets beated out necessarily has to get written.
Dave's waking up.
It's part of the I have to keep that knife sharp. So every single day, just like I write every day, I do take time to outline every day. And as far as the time things take, it totally depends on the project. Sometimes something takes 3 or 4 days. Sometimes it'll take 3 weeks. The most extensive beats I've ever done were for Dream Engine 2 and 3, Nightmare Factory and Ruby Room, and those beats were really, really extensive. I think it was about a month spent on those, and they were just ridiculous. Um, and that was actually a good case of okay, we have to start this project, so beats are over. I could have probably done it twice as long. I was having a lot
And
of
every
fun.
time you bring this up, I feel like you spent too much time on those beats. Let me assure you that you did not. The depth, those are the only beats. So the Axis beats, I got excited about in a weird way. Like I kind of got sentimental about them. The story became dear to me. But those beats, the Ruby Room and Nightmare Factory specifically, Dream Engine Book 2, those are the only beats I've ever gotten outright excited about. Do you remember I was in I think we had Slack at the time, and I was in Beats, and I was, why won't you wake up so I can talk to you about these beats? Like, so don't feel bad about this beats. But the point is you have to know when to stop, because otherwise it's analysis paralysis.
Right. So just if beats don't keep me from writing at all. They just keep me from other beats. If beats were keeping me from writing or producing, I think that's a problem. And I think that sometimes writers, they like the process of thinking about what they're going to do more than actually doing it, and I think that's always dangerous.
All right, so here's this question we got via email. I'm going to sort of summarize it and anonymize it a little bit, just because the sender wasn't entirely comfortable with it being read, and Amy said that we would give a modified version here, basically. So the upshot is your mom. It says, "Can you please tell one of your co-hosts to just wake up in a day schedule?" Yeah. So basically, he's saying that. He wants to write. He wants to make it as a career, but he's just feeling discouraged about it. So he only manages to write half hour a day. He's not in a position where he can quit his job or his wife can quit his job. And when he does manage to write, he doesn't like what comes out. And he managed to publish a book, but it was just I don't know. He says the editing wasn't good, and it just didn't. He just felt like a lot of bad things. It wasn't quite right. And the basic idea is like, what's the next step? Like, you can get it going, and maybe you could make it work, but how? And so the first thing that I would say about this, and this is I don't know if Amy passed it along, but the first reaction I had when I read this email is, dude, you're doing okay. Like, you're doing okay. So Sean had this example of people tell us all the time that they can't write. Oh, I can't find the time to write. And at the time, Sean was on the back of this 1,000 words per day that he was just managing to squeeze in, like when I was in town and we were doing the summit. And so he woke up and went to the bathroom and wrote while sitting on the toilet at 5 a.m. or something. And he's like, dude, if I can manage to do that, and it adds up. It's like, it's not a lot of writing each day, but it adds up. And he's like, I've written this many words this year. And so when we hear stuff like that, that's typical. And so when I see this story, I only managed to write 30 words a day. Dude, you managed to write 30 words a day. I don't like what comes out when I write. Dude,
30 minutes. It's
30 minutes. I don't like what comes out. Dude, you got stuff out. I publish one book a year, but I don't like it. I don't feel like this is right. Dude, you published a book last year. Like, that's a big deal. So that's my first non-advice advice to go with this is I think you're further along than you think you are. Now, as far as how to actually get going, I think we've established that this is not a get-rich-quick business. It is not a get-rich-quick-sure business. It is not necessarily a get-rich business at all. And so I hate to be a little discouraging about this, but the chances of you having a full-time writing career for a lot of people is just like you're going to have to. It takes a lot of work. Like, we work a hell of a lot. But that said, that doesn't mean you're not on the right track. So if you don't know what to do next, my advice is I know it's tough, I know it's a slog, but it's to keep on writing. You published one book, publish another book. You don't like the editing or what you did with the first book, then optimize it. That's what we're doing now. Get another edit. Get a pro cover. It's going to be a long, slow road. It's going to feel slower than you like. But there's no magic wand that will make that faster. So I would just write the next book, and I would focus in a series. If you really only feel like you can write so much, I would write a narrowly focused series so that you can build momentum rather than trying to do anything wide. Complete your funnel, build your list, and it's just going to take you a while, but give yourself some credit, honestly.
Yeah, and I have no idea what your day is like, but I do know that a lot of people who say, I don't have time to write. What they actually mean is I'm not making time to write. And if you have young kids and a stressful job and all of that, like, I understand that. And 30 minutes a day is awesome, because if you're consistent, that's still 3.5 hours a week. Like, that does add up. It really does.
And that's what he's got now. Yeah.
But I think that you could probably up that to an hour a day if it's really important to you. because most people, this is a very regular conversation. I don't have any time to write. Where can I find more time to write? Do you watch TV? Yes. Almost everybody.
My favorite is sleep less. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah, right. I agree. If you sleep 7 hours, a night, sleep 6.5.
Long bathroom breaks at work.
You're going to get a lot of energy from you. I guarantee you can sleep less and still have more energy because you're going to be excited by what you're doing. If you're genuinely excited and you genuinely want to write, then that half an hour that you're waking up earlier shouldn't be a burden. It should be exciting once you do it. I don't know when. It's like a month or something from now. We're going to have the guy who wrote The Miracle Morning, Hal Elrond, on, and that's his whole message, is just get up earlier. And while his book does take a very long time to say that, that is a good message. You do need to wake up earlier, and I think that every writer could benefit from that.
Okay, I'm gonna go on a limb here and say if the only measure of whether you're going to write or not is that you become a success at it, you should just give up now.
Well, Dave's advice is usually give up.
No. If you're a writer, you fucking
I
write.
actually do agree with that as much as.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, there is no guarantee, and if you're a writer, you write. I was drawing comics for years, not making any money at it. Eventually, I did make money at it, but it was just something I had to do. And the same thing with writing. Now, you don't have to devote. If you're not making money at it, obviously, you don't have to devote all of your time towards it. Putting food on the table is your first priority all the time. Now, when my son was born, and he was young, I didn't have a lot of free time at all, and I didn't have a lot of time to work on my art, be it comics or writing. And what I had to do was I had to scale it back. And then because I needed to do the shit I need to do, I eventually figured out, I don't know how, I don't know if somebody gave me this advice or if it's just something I figured out, but basically it became a situation where, like, if I needed time, I had to bargain to get time. Like, I would tell my wife, okay, listen, you want to do this thing? I want to do this thing. Like, you'll watch our son for a little while and give me this, like, unfettered, just this time I need to do my thing, and then I'll give you the same. And I think that can really work if you have, if that's a situation. And I don't even know if this person has kids, but yeah, if you don't have kids, and you really have no excuse.
Just a quick shout out to Dylan Perry with his "Hey guys" hypothetical.
Yeah, I saw that.
If I were in the market for a good book cover, where could I go? P.S. I have a deep fear of losing everything. Hilarious.
We'll tell you tomorrow.
Stay tuned.
Okay. Then you got a backup fucking question? I just finished talking.
All right. No, all right.
Well, I figure. I mean, there's a lot of
I can't look for a question while I'm also talking.
Okay, I can definitely pull them out.
Then you know what we should do to keep this moving is we all have one ready to go. So, but I don't. Have you guys seen any conversions correlated with releasing free fiction on your website and blogs for Nevermore Robot Proletariat? And how can fiction authors benefit from this strategy?
No.
Yeah.
No, it was a waste of time.
Yeah, no. I do think there are ways to get that fiction, that free fiction reader, but I think it's hard. I think it's really, really hard, and we have something that we're working on that may be a game changer later on this year. That does do that. It broadcasts something for free in hopes that people will convert to a paid product. But by and large, it's really hard. You need mass traffic to make it work. And the bigger danger is that you're training people, to not pay. And we've had a lot of internal discussions on this because some of our imprints we've handled wrong. We've trained our readers to basically only expect things for free or for on sale, and that doesn't really do us any favors. So as far as those specific experiments, I don't think that they've worked very well. I think part of that is how we've handled it. I don't think we put CTAs on there. The way it was designed isn't really the way it was executed, and so I think that's part of it. But I think part of it is also just the strategy.
I'll say there's an exception to the rule. I think if you're an author that does well on a platform like Wattpad and you do extremely well and you've built and cultivated an audience, you could probably get away with doing something like that on your website. And if you have enough of those people, then maybe that could also translate into sales.
That's
It can
how.
work. I mean, The
That's how.
Martian, right.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say was The Martian.
Yeah.
That worked really well for him. I do think it can work, but I think it's hard, and I think that it's the kind of thing you probably do. One of the reasons that Robot Proletariat and For Nevermore didn't work is that stuff was already available. So if you had a model, say, where you were putting out new episodes, but the only way to get the rest of the story was to buy it, that might work. Or if it really worked to build anticipation. But the way we did it on the site was basically this stuff's already out. Here you can read it.
Yeah, it also didn't work because our blog is fuckery, honestly. Like we don't have our new theme yet. That's close. That we're really getting close on that. But finding shit on our blog and following our blog and caring about what happens on it and stuff. We just didn't. We had a core group that came back, but I don't think anyone was reading it. Like even if it was new, it just didn't make sense. If you have an engaged blog following, I can see that working.
And you also can't just throw shit up and expect people to keep returning. We did nothing. I mean, zero to promote either of those things. So you can't. Promotion is part of it. You have to do the work, but then you also have to promote it, and that was really one-sided on that strategy.
Just side note on that is you guys will notice that there's been a lot of stuff that we've done that's cool and that's worked. And an example is this hasn't worked yet, but we all feel it will. Is when we launch the Indie Fiction podcast, we think that's going to be a game changer. But guys, on our blog, we were doing the Indie Fiction podcast. Like it was called Indie Fiction Podcast Episode 6, kind of like we were serializing the fiction. And this has nothing to do with anything, but I just thought of it because of serializing on the blog. Is you will notice how many things we do that don't work. And I think that any writer can take a lesson from that. You can't expect to score on everything. The more you fail, the more you have the chance to succeed. So just pointing that out. I do have another question. So dogging the words, which I thought was going to be dogging the queen, just saying, is you talk a lot about how to sell a series of books. Can you create the same momentum if you have several standalone titles? And if so, how do you keep the flow/funnel going? Okay, so the reason I picked this one is because Sean and I were just talking about this for one of our lines. And I think the answer is that series are a little more magnetic, and you can get momentum going with standalones, and you can sell standalones, but it depends a little bit more, I think, on whether you already have an audience's trust. So, in other words, a standalone is easier to sell once you already have a bunch of people who have maybe been engaged by a series. So, Sean and Dave are a good example. They built their stuff originally on Yesterday's Gone, and I would wager that a whole lot of people who read Collective Inkwell works originally were attracted by Yesterday's Gone. So 12, for instance, is a standalone, but the reason you were able to broadcast to people to tell them about it is because they were interested in Yesterday's Gone. So I believe a strong series is probably one of the best ways to draw readers. But if you do have several standalone titles, this is something we've faced when trying to book promotions and stuff. So, for instance, if we had a standalone that was featured on BookBub or something, what would we do? Is trying to look at other standalones that we would have on offer that may be similar to that. So, what was it? I was creating a call to action for something having to do with invasion, and so a call to action at the end of that for the Beam might make sense. Or if they were reading Unicorn Western, then Robot Proletariat, although those are series, but you get the idea. If we were doing Axis of Aaron, that's a standalone. I would not send them, like I would say, what book is the most similar to that in my catalog, and I would send them to that. So you can do it. It's just it's harder because a flow and a funnel is supposed to be like, I liked this, now I want to get the next thing. And if you've closed all the loops, then they have to decide, okay, well, I'm willing to try something different and open new loops.
Yeah, and also bundles are a big business, in Facebook advertising especially, and series, it's where it's at. We were trying to get some Facebook ads going today with Garrett, and he's like, I need a bundle to sell. Like, if you guys want to sell direct, I need a bundle, and all of our bundles, we're doing exclusive deals with different vendors, and so they're all kind of exclusive and tied up. And I said, well, what about a bundle that has 12 and Crash? And well, no, it's got to be a series. And that is true. If you're trying to bundle products together, a series bundle just absolutely makes sense, and other stuff is harder. So.
Okay, Christy K. James says, along with many other authors, I've noticed a serious decrease in sales this year. It started to go down a little at a time last year to falling dramatically this year. I went from selling 80 to 100 books a day during most of 2014 to being lucky if I can sell 30 to 40 most days now. And unless I keep most of my books in Select, it's even worse. Any suggestions for what we can do to combat the negative effects of what I've heard others call the KU apocalypse? Thanks.
Yeah, you got to go wide. Honestly, I think that so most of our readers are Amazon, so I don't want to shit on the Amazon marketplace. I do love Amazon, and I certainly don't want to shit on Amazon readers. But that said, it is a very, very large marketplace, and it's easy for shit to get lost. And because of that, I think that there's a certain commodity approach to books that Amazon's ecosystem and Amazon readers do kind of tend to take. And a lot of that is like a race to the bottom in terms of price. We've noticed Amazon readers are more willing to wait for sales than readers on other platforms. And Amazon and KU can be fantastic to people, but to me it feels like you're putting all of your eggs in one basket, and it's a basket where somebody else gets to make all the rules. And so rather than saying, okay, well, my sales are declining, I would say, well, what can I do to get things going on other platforms? And if you are selling well on Amazon, then I would say, well, how can I start building readership on other platforms? There are readers on all of those platforms. I just don't believe in KU because it's so whimsical. It's so like, well, they're up this month, well, they're down this month, and you either celebrate or you cry, but it's something that's not in your control, and I fundamentally dislike anything I don't have any control over.
Yeah, I agree with all that.
I'd also add, if you're not advertising, I would try like advertising on sites like BookBub and such. I mean, it's difficult to get accepted by BookBub.
But be relentless. Just
that'll. If you're not doing that yet, that should help.
Price pulsing, temporary free, new covers, new blurbs, that sort of thing.
Yeah, covers are a big thing too. But yeah, the KDP Select is it's great in a lot of ways, but it's also like they said, it goes up and down. What works now won't work later, and I hate to tell anyone to take everything out and go wide. If they're doing well. But if you're not doing well, what have you got to lose? The longer you wait to go into these other stores, I personally think it'll be the harder it will be to get started in these other stores. Because we started, I don't know, a year ago? I mean, we're just starting to see the fruits of that now.
No,
it's kind of absurd. So to give you guys an example, this isn't even a very good example, but we just did a promotion for Invasion. And it was we promoted that heavily on Nook, but it was also just a BookBub that hit Nook. And I wish I had something more recent, but just to give you an example, over the last few days, here are some of the titles that have sold: Namaste, Robo-Proletariat, Threshold, Yesterday's Gone, Crash. And there was one a few days ago where we were seeing Beam and Unicorn Genesis. My point is that once you find readers on Nook or Kobo or Apple, they're readers on those platforms, and readers go with writers that they like. And so we're not necessarily just seeing titles of sales of titles we promote. We're seeing sales of all of our titles in greater and lesser amounts. But the point is that people are finding us on those. And to Dave's point, it just takes time for people to get to know and trust you on those platforms, and it just takes time. So anyway.
All right. I have a 12,000 word novelette, which leads into a series of novels. The trouble is that I can't advertise on BookBub with only a 12,000 novelette, and it wouldn't make sense to advertise a later book in a series, would it? So do you think I should combine the novelette with the second book? And if I do, should I re-upload under the first title so I don't lose my reviews on the novelette, which are positive overall? Or is that disingenuous since the reviews were, oops, I got to read more. We're on the novelette and not on the novelette and novel combo. Thanks in advice for any advice or help.
That was Simon Kenton.
They won't let you get away with a lot of that, just FYI.
Yeah, I think that I don't think there's anything wrong with advertising a later book in the series. That happens all the time. I think getting eyeballs on it is most important. And if you can't advertise the novelette, then advertise the book.
And BookBub is not all end all be all either, too. When you say I can't get a BookBub ad, there are plenty of things we can't get BookBub ads for. We can't rely on BookBub any more than we should be relying on KDP Select. It's just something we should use if we can.
Right, that's a really good point. Think strategically, because working around BookBub is thinking tactically. Do what's best for your readers and your long-term thought.
All right, Christian Sneed says, I've been watching you guys a long time. I just have to say that Dave's hair is awesome. MG on agreed. Dave is a hairy.
Did he say haha?
Hey, yes, he did. Percival Thank you. Percival Constantine says, would Johnny and Dave ever write something together, or would Dave bring out too many of Johnny's Dave-like tendencies?
We've talked about that. People have asked that question a lot. Okay, so I would love that, but in the way that I love it conceptually. Like, I don't think I would. I think Dave and I would not be good writing partners.
We'd fight.
I think it would be bad, because I think Dave likes to control and I like to control certain different things, and I would go off like I do with Sean, and then Dave would tell me that was stupid, and then I'd get offended and pissed off, and it would just be bad, and there would be blood. But I like it because right now we have an uneven kind of tripod, and Sean is our linchpin. Sean and Dave, Sean and Johnny, and it would be kind of cool if we could complete the triangle and have Johnny and Dave, but we'll have to find some collaboration that wouldn't have us skinning things.
Somebody asked, and I can't find the comment now, somebody asked the origin of the name Sterling and Stone. Sean, you want to?
Oh, yeah, sure. This is back when Sterling and Stone 1.0. Sterling and Stone is actually slightly older than the podcast. And when I was originally conceiving of the idea, I wanted it to sound like a publisher. So, Simon and Schuster, I wanted it to have like an old school feeling, two names, which cracked me up because that was a line they used on the finale of Mad Men. You need two names, make it sound official. And when I was a kid, my sister and I decided that the fanciest name in the world was Sterling Maccabee. I have no idea why.
I have made a Maccabee in Beam Season 3 and noted it for you so you can see that.
Fantastic. So we just always thought that was really funny. So, the historium for the Dream Engine is written by Inquisitor L. Ron Sterling. There's Sterling Gibson for the Beam. There's Sterling and Stone. It's something that tickles me, and if something tickles me, that's pretty much enough.
Okay, James.
Imagining a Tickle Me Sean doll right now.
James Goy, I'm not sure how to, whatever. Junior asks, sorry. I need actually to keep my writing publishing life as simple as possible while still doing it right for reasons I won't go into, one of which, though, is a prospect of movement between states over the coming years. I did file a DBA name and got a bank account, even put a website and social media under his proposed press name. Basically, he wants to know if he should put in a publisher name or put his own name for publisher when you're entering, on the stuff in the fields when you're doing your book. Like, is there any negative to just having your name there instead?
I don't think it matters, honestly.
But I would say if you have a DBA and you have a legit business, and why not use that? So.
Yeah, sure. If you have it.
If you leave it blank, though, it'll probably say like Amazon for Amazon. It'll say Amazon Publishing, which a lot of books do, anyways.
I like how Kobo. I think Kobo's the only one that will let you put publisher and imprint. And that's nice.
And that's really, really cool, because it'd be great if we could do that for all of our stuff. Sterling and Stone, Collective Inkwell. That's pretty cool. Okay, so here's one for you, Johnny. Just wondering what was up with the Beam Season 3 Fiction Unbox thing Johnny hinted at in his email. I'm not even sure what that is.
Oh, yeah, it's actually, I understand why you would confuse that with Fiction Unboxed, because it is confusing. I was hinting at Beam Unboxed was what I was hinting at. So this is, I actually don't want to go into this too much because this is one of those things where we say, shh, we're not ready. But we are, as part of a larger project, looking to start doing unboxeds for books.
Oh, okay. Okay,
so right, so it'd be like a spoiler-rich discussion of things that occurred, like DVD extras for the books. And I know that David, I know you know about this. Sean said that you sounded into it, so that must have been a woohoo moment. But I really don't want to say more other than that we will start doing those. But it has nothing to do with Fiction Unboxed. It's just unboxed, like Beam Unboxed or 12 Unboxed, something like that.
Okay, here's.
I have time for like one or two more questions.
Okay, here's one from Dylan Kiefer. 2 questions. Do you prefer books that are character-driven or books that are plot-driven? Is this preference genre-specific or across all genres? I would answer that all of our books are character-driven regardless of the plot. The plot has to serve the characters. We put a lot of time and attention at every single one of our imprints. Character comes first.
But that said, I think that plot does need to march to a heavier beat in some genres. So the first Invasion book was so plot. I'm making rhythmic sounds here if you can't hear that. That it was I didn't even have to check with Sean. It was like this happens, this happens, this happens. But that said, it had to be populated by characters that made it work and that you cared about or didn't care about. A lot of people hated the characters, but that was kind of the point in Invasion. So anyway, go ahead, Dave. What were you gonna say?
I don't know. I had a question lined up.
Oh, okay. You sort of. It sounded like you were agreeing with me, but.
Oh yeah. I did. I said yeah.
Okay.
Some books are about the plot more than like mysteries and stuff. Okay. Rachel Tolson says she just started listening to SPP. Just for sake of brevity, she is having trouble with newsletters. So again, listen to tomorrow's show.
Listen to tomorrow's show, and it'll be on the feed, I believe, June 17th. If you listen on the audio feed.
Yeah, and there's one thing here too where she's writing Kidlit, and that is hard because you have to market to the parents and not to the children. So yeah, we'll be doing a whole episode about that. So I'm sure we'll cover everything.
One more question for me anyway, and then you guys can continue if you want. But
I'll stay. I'd love to clear this queue. Let's do this one because this involves you. Mark says, I have a story idea that I think would fit nicely into the Beam world. Is it open for anyone to write in, like Engine World? And the answer to that is no. Simply because the Beam is a much more complicated world. That is, it would be invite only. I don't mind other people writing in that world. I think it's a rich world that could certainly support it, but it would have to be people.
It'd have to be like fanfic. It wouldn't be official sanctioned stuff.
Yeah, or like we had talked at one point like Ed Robertson, for example, if he wanted to write something in there, that would be.
We have extended a few invitations. Nobody's taken us up on it yet because the series kind of hasn't hit critical mass. But once it does, I think some of these people might be interested.
Yeah, and the world was always intended to kind of support that weight, and I think that could be really, really cool. But I think that anybody writing in the world of the Beam could make kind of a mess. And the Dream Engine, there's a machine that makes dreams. Like you can get away with a lot of stuff there. The Beam actually takes place in this reality, and it's very technical. And
it's reality that diverted from the Target parking lot.
The timelines are really, really complicated. So in Beam Season 3, I'm doing there's a lot of flashbacks. And I keep leaving Sean Scrivener notes like, check this because I think this may have happened relative to Crossbrace and the Beam, and this guy would have been this age, and he would have been in this grade, and this would have occurred, and I think we already touched on this. And it's like keeping the tendrils straight is a real challenge because you have to know what happened when and what would be relevant when, who would have what add-ons, what technologies exist, what level of connectivity. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that we haven't even explored. Like in Beam Season 2, you see the first appearances of Clive Spooner, who originally came from the side storybook Plugged. And Clive plays just a little bit of a role again in Season 3. And if you don't know the side story with Clive Spooner, Clive actually appeared in he actually appeared in the Lexi story, The Future of Sex, between Plugged and Beam Season 2. So there's a lot of world stuff you might not know. So just to underscore Sean's point about complexity.
Yeah. So do you need to get off, Johnny?
Yeah, I'm gonna. That's a different question than do I need to leave?
That's why
yeah, I'm gonna bail. I will note that you mentioned the thing about Audra recording this as an audition for whatever. I didn't actually make an audio recording, so she's gonna have to rip the YouTube audio. So sorry, Audra.
Sorry, Audra.
Or we can do another one, but it didn't occur to me because I don't normally record these, and so I didn't think of it. So I'm gonna bail. So thank you, everybody. It sounds like Dave might be your prisoner of fortune. Dave, you can bail too, and Sean can just.
Well, there aren't that many.
Stay here a few more minutes.
Yeah, there aren't.
All right. So I'll see you guys. Have a good night.
Bye, quitter.
Bye.
Awesome.
Barry McDonald.
All right, let's do Ashley. Oh, okay. No, go ahead.
I asked this question before on your site, never got an answer. My question is, how do you cope with eye strain and working for long hours at a screen? Any advice would be greatly appreciated. I have this issue because I have a problem with my eyes, and it hurts like a motherfucker to write at a screen for a long time. I use eye drops a lot. I get up and I rest my eyes. Eye drops, if you do use them, I don't know the brand I use, but it doesn't have any preservatives. So make sure you get something with no preservatives and use it every hour if you need to. And get up and leave your screen. I suffer from that big time.
I go for a walk.
And dim your screen, by the way. You can also dim your screen.
Yeah, I tend to just get up as much as possible. A few times a day. I get up and walk a couple times a day. I'll just get up and do some push-ups or a little bit of exercise or just something so that I'm not just sitting at the screen. And I think that kind of rebooting really helps. Ashley,
question?
Okay. Just wondering if the three of you have ever used or looked into NetGalley. Do you think it is worth it to find reviewers for a new author? Not yet, but Maya, it's on her list of things to check out. We are absolutely interested in trying, and we'll talk about it on the show if so. I think that reviews are just so critically important, and things like BookBub, taking your book, and other buyers being interested in giving it a chance, all of that stuff, it just happens so much easier when you have a lot of reviews. So we are looking into NetGalley. We just haven't yet.
Zach Bohannon says, didn't Jay Thorne write a book in that world on the Beam? So we did have somebody take us up on it.
Yeah, he wrote a single short story. It wasn't a book. It was a short story. And I worked with him on that. So it wasn't in isolation either.
And I think that was Invite also, wasn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, he sent an email and gave me a pitch, and we worked on it together. So it wasn't. I'm a little protective of the Beam. Not that I'm not protective of the Dream Engine, but it was designed to kind of be something that everybody could play around in. And I think some of the rules that we came up with for that world were there to kind of support that amount of energy.
Lori Wastel says, I have an established platform as an artist and plan to write using a nom de plume. Again, that's twice I've seen that word today. What ideas, strategies could be used to get the existing email list to come over to the new list? These folk are all avid readers, so it wouldn't be asking them to do something they wouldn't like. Beth's friend in Denver.
Hi, Beth's friend in Denver. Or I should say Beth's friend in Denver.
You know her?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, I'm out of the fucking loop on this one.
I think giving them a sample is great. I think that pitching somebody who's already used to this little box over here, A, and telling them to go buy something in box B might be a mistake, but you can certainly let them taste it. You
also tell them about, like, I don't know how you normally are in your emails, but if you talk about like the craft behind your art, talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Just be human, talk about yourself and don't be afraid. But I think samples are great. That's a good example. Like, hey, I know this isn't normally your thing. This is just something I've wanted to do. And I thought it'd be really cool. So here you could just check it out. Here's what I'm trying. And then on that page, that's where you have your call to action. Either join this other list for more information about this, or go ahead and here's a book you can buy. I think either of those would work.
Carrie McQuaid says, "Hi guys, my first time watching live. Hello. I am just wondering about what you said about going wide in the beginning. Isn't that part discovery? So my question is, didn't going wide help you find what worked and what didn't? Were the projects you abandoned after a couple of years of experience?"
Yeah, that's a great question. I've loved going wide for exactly that reason. Um, I'm not sure. I could be wrong about this, but I actually think there's nothing that we've abandoned.
No.
There's stuff that we'll go back and we'll finish it after a time. Like there's okay. So here's a good example. We have Everybody Gets Divorced on the LOL line, which is comedy or death, as Dave would call it. And it was set up as a something that could be multiple seasons. And what we're doing for that is when we get around to it, this isn't